Back in 2006, Burger King released 3 advertisement-based games for the Xbox 360. Pocket Bike Racer, Big Bumpin', and of course the infamous Sneak King. These games sold for $3.99 a piece, alongside the purchase of a value meal, of course. This campaign was so successful that these 3 games collectively ranked among the top 10 most selling games of 2006, and was attributed as being the driving force behind the company's 40% quarterly sales increase. This is probably thanks to this guy who has 2,706 copies of the game. Excuse me. He now has over 3,000 of them. So why?
That's a good question. Why? Why do we do anything in this world? I'll tell you why. Because if I don't get every single copy of that game, the world ends. I'm not explaining to you why it's going to end, but it will end if I don't have every single copy.
Anyway, the success of these games are crazy to me because I played through every single one of them, and honestly, they were very hard to sit through. These are no joke some of the worst games I have ever played. But I do enjoy getting my controller all greasy. Thank you to my patrons for helping me afford such a delicious meal. Alright, first of all, I never expected anything high quality from these games. They were sold at a fast food restaurant for $4 each after all. But with that being said, I wasn't ready for depression. Many companies and products have been making advertisement-based games for basically as long as video games have existed. The most recent example I'm aware of is the Grimace video game that came alongside the Grimace Shake. So the idea of making these 3 games, even at the time, was not anything revolutionary. However, I completely understand why these games sold so well despite being kinda crappy. How many copies do you currently have?
Right now I have over 4,000. I don't have an exact count, but it's probably around the like 4,100 range.
The novelty of going to Burger King just for some food, but coming back with 3 different video games is very fun to me. I hardly ever go to fast food restaurants, but if they did something like this nowadays, I'd go in a heartbeat, even to Burger King. Oh, did I hurt your feelings? Do you feel comfortable saying how much money you spent on these games?
It's probably in the thousands range, probably 2,000, 3,000. Yeah, not crazy. Especially for the amount of like just press and just the funny story. Like that's mainly why I'm doing this. Is just because it's a funny story. It's dumb. It makes me laugh. And as long as it keeps being funny, then yeah, I'm gonna keep collecting them and keep the pile going.
Anyway, what makes these 3 games so bad? I say we start with Snake King since it's the most well-known out of the 3 and my least favorite. So first of all, I can't ignore how this game opens like a horror movie with the king sneaking around. Sneak King, or Sneaking, is a game where you sneak around as the king and hand out food to unsuspecting hungry civilians. If a civilian manages to see you with their incredibly narrow field of view, then they don't want the food. But if you manage to sneak up to them without being noticed, the king will do a little dance and the civilian will gladly enjoy their meal. Am I the only one that thinks that this is some kind of fetish game? Hear me out. These people are starving. If you do not feed them, they will pass out. However, if they see you coming, they do not want the food. They will only eat it if you're sneaky. This implies they are less concerned about eating food to not pass out, and more concerned about getting the thrill of the surprise. Therefore, they have a sneak fetish. Every single one of them. There's 4 levels with 20 missions in each level. The first level is in a sawmill for some weird ass reason. Like, why are we starting here of all places? There are hiding spots you can hide in to get more points when you surprise someone, but that's literally never worth it. You and the NPC move so slow and you have to predict where they're going to go. Meanwhile, you have to make sure they get to you before they pass out. Also, this game is like half cutscenes. Every single time you deliver a burger, you are forced to watch one of the few repetitive dances over and over. I mean, don't get me wrong, the king's got moves, but the gameplay loop is walk slowly, dance, rinse, and repeat. I wanted to see exactly how long I was watching the cutscenes versus actually playing the game. So what I did was I took all of my footage from the last level for every mission I completed and split it into 2 categories. Those being gameplay and cutscene. When I cut it all down, my total game time was a little over 25 minutes. Over 15 of those minutes was spent sneaking around delivering food to people, and almost 10 minutes was spent watching the king dance.
There's a lot of really bad tie-in games, and this one's actually pretty sweet. It's kind of got a little Metal Gear Solid to it. All the doing a flourish to like get the better food is like so funny. So it's definitely like if you haven't played it, yeah, give it a try. Out of the 3 games, for sure, I think it's the best one.
Do you want my version of Sneak King?
I would absolutely love to add it to the pile. It'll go right here in between these 2.
Yes.
And yes, it would be an honor to have your copy.
It's an honor to give you my copy. There's nothing better I could do with this.
If you want to send us a copy of Sneak King, we would greatly appreciate it. If you want to add your name to it, we'll mention you in a future episode because we have a YouTube channel called Sneak Kings, where me, my best friend Bobby Ramos, go out into the world and try to find copies of Sneak King and usually just end up beating the crap out of each other over some minor squabble.
Check this out. We got one copy of Pocket Bike Racer. What the fuck?
Out of the 3 games, Pocket Bike Racer is the second worst, or second best depending on how you look at it. After playing this game, I completely understand why it's not talked about nearly as much as Sneak King. Anyway, you think these BK crown cards still work? The title screen is the best part of the game. It makes me wonder how this one ended up with the worst game case. I don't even know who this is. Her name is Brooke Berg. Can you even read that? You can also play as Subservient, Chicken, Whopper Jr., and those are the only characters that matter. How far can you jump is not a tip. I think the worst part about this game are the track layouts. It's near impossible to tell where to go sometimes. I have driven off into the void many times. You need to heavily rely on the arrows for directions, which makes driving normally a challenge. This is my favorite example of a questionable map. At 150cc, you need insane reaction time if you don't have the map layout memorized. Hands down, the most fun I've had while playing this game is watching the NPCs also not be able to stay on track. Like, trust me, I get it. I get stuck on nothing all the time. The best is playing the battle mode and just following the NPCs around. They get constantly stuck in the dumbest loops, just suffering for eternity. I parked here to watch how long they'd stay in this one spot, and they stayed there for so long my controller died, no joke. Meanwhile, nobody was getting any points. I was in 4th place with 1 point the entire time. So the main racing mode is okay once you get the hang of it, but I don't understand why you would play this game when literally any other racing game exists.
Whopper, 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 Junior, double, triple, Whopper, flame grill taste with perfect toppers. I rule this day.
Big Bumpin' is not only the best Burger King game, but it's an okay game overall. It's a bumper car game with a few different modes. Fun fact, the instructions on these modes are only shown to you while the game loads, which does take a while, but it also cycles through with hints, so you have a very limited window to try and read them. The intro to each stage is longer than the instructions, so that's fun. Anyway, why does this intro feel like a horror movie? Let me start this review by saying this game is complete ass if you're only playing with NPCs. Depending on the game mode, they're so easy to get stuck in a loop. And in other games, winning and losing can just feel random. It's hard to consistently win anything, or maybe I just suck. As much as it hurts to say, I'm willing to take a big bump in L. Playing this game with and against friends makes this an actually decent party game, assuming you only want to play bumper cards. There's one mode that involves you bringing a puck to the goal 1 puck at a time. And if you work with a friend, you can consistently make sure no NPCs ever get a point. So what I'm trying to say is this game is best when you play with friends and make your own fun. But isn't that also just the case for life?
So many people are afraid of being cringe, and so many people worry about what strangers think about them on the internet, and you just can't live life like that. There is always going to be someone, no matter what you're doing, who thinks what you're doing is stupid. And if you base your entire life on the whims of some rando internet guy who you will never meet and it will never have any effect on your life otherwise, you just can't live that way. You just gotta do what you find fun and funny and great. That's what life's all about, is finding the things you enjoy and then finding the ways to do them. Like, who cares? Just do it. Have fun. Life is short.